Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. It's me again, Jen. Hello! And we are still reading from the Star Spinner Tarot. And I've really enjoyed these cards all month long. I like even the box itself is super decorated and very pretty. There's a little ribbon to help you get the cards out without destroying them. It does come with a little book, a pretty substantial little book actually, that has the meanings of the cards. There's not a whole lot of fancy stories in it, even though I'm pretty sure these cards do represent a lot of interesting fairy tales because Truggles, the designer and artist for these cards, is a comic book artist. So I feel like they probably are leaning into a lot of the storytelling aspect of the tarot rather than just the traditional imagery, like in this card. There is so much story, I feel like, in these two characters. There's so many things I feel like it could represent. To me, it could represent the Sphinx that we see so often in stories, the gatekeepers, because again, the swords are crossed and you cannot get to the moon, the window of the moon behind them. So it's almost like they are forcing you to make a choice, forcing you to ask them a question or answer a question. They feel like gatekeepers to me. Also, I like the little wings on their ears because that, again, represents our air sign, which swords are air. So I like when little things like that are represented. I've seen a deck where the entire thing is feathers or birds, which is super nice because you know that's an air sign thing then. So while the characters are blue, which is not an air sign thing, the feathers are represented as well as stars on their sleeves. And of course, they do have two swords. So you've got all of the more traditional symbolism and elements at least somewhat represented on there. The moon in the background is also pretty typical to the Two of Swords card. What is not typical is that there are not just two swords, but there are two individuals. So I feel like while they can also be gatekeepers, they can also be representations of like the two sides of our mind, the two sides of our narrative that's going on inside our mind, where we can kind of be literally beside ourselves making a decision on something, especially in a decision such that is represented in the Two of Swords, where there really isn't a good answer. So the Two of Swords is kind of, again, most of the story of the swords isn't really a positive story. It's kind of a struggle the whole way. There's not a whole lot of easy messages when it comes to sword cards. So with the Two of Swords, there isn't an easy answer. There isn't an easy choice. Probably both choices are going to put you in a position you'd rather not be in. In the case of the Two of Swords, we've all seen those situations where it's like, well, I'm picking the lesser of two evils, I guess. And that I can see too with this, because they're kind of looking down. They're not happy about this potential duel that they're having with one another. Usually it is a woman seated on a bench with the moon behind her, and there is water behind her too. There is no water represented in this one, but I feel like that's okay in the sense that it's more about the mental side of things than it is the emotional side for the most part. I do think that emotions are represented when we're making decisions, but in a hard decision, there's a whole lot of logic that has to come into it. So I like the idea that in the swords, this is kind of airy and communicative, more about covering the ears as well. So there's a whole lot in this card that I think you could pick apart kind of for days. But the biggest thing that I like is that these two characters, although they are meant to represent one, which is pretty clear because they are twin in pretty much every aspect, there's no differences in them that I can tell. I'm sure there are artistic differences just because when you try to draw something, it never comes out exactly the same. But I think the artist is trying to represent that this is almost a mirror image of the same person. So that is represented. The struggle and the uncertainty of it is represented in their facial features and the emotion in their faces. Have I told you how awesome I think the emotion in these faces are yet? I think I may have, but I cannot say it enough. Either way, I like the representation in this card. I think it's very well done. The darkness and somberness of the card is also very relevant in it, and it's clear to see. So I hope all of your decisions are easier ones than these guys have, but my decision is not easy as I try to figure out what am I going to do in April with the next cards. Either way, until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. I'll see you again soon.